this was inevitable. I would get to Planet of the Vampires and Green Slime. It was inevitable. I eventually went to see these films. Obviously, I'm doing a video on them. Like, it's like, we expect me not to do this? So yeah, so I thought it'd be good to do them as double bill, because I saw them pretty close together, and they were made around about the same time. Planet of the Vampires a bit earlier. So here you've got two directors who are doing genres that aren't what they're famous for. I mean, Planet of the Vampires is made by Mario Bava, and it's a sci-fi movie, and he's more famous for horror. Then we have Green Slime, which is directed by Kinji Fukasaku, who you'll know from gangster movies from the 70s. You know, this is not his preferred genre. I would definitely say that Green Slime is the weaker of the two films. You know, by quite a bit. It's not very enjoyable, but weaker. Because it's always a director who's not doing the kind of film that he's really put enough to make. He was never really a sci-fi director. The only time he ever really succeeded in sci-fi was Battle Royale. And that was way later. And even then, the sci-fi stuff was taken away. It was just basically social satire. So, not his thing. But they were both like 60s cheese fests that actually had interesting elements to them. But you can't easily approach them as pre-2001 cheese fests. Like films that were made from the 60s or influenced by 50s American films. The kind of Forbidden Planets and all that stuff. They were trying to be pulp sci-fi. One was European, one was Japanese. Even though they were trying to appeal to American markets, they were kind of old-fashioned and they were kind of out of time even when they were made. They weren't really ever going to succeed in the main markets. To a degree, they would probably wish to succeed. But it does not mean they're useless. It just means they're a bit weird. I happen to adore Planet of the Vampires. And Planet of the Vampires was going to be a big influence on a very influential horror movie. Or horror sci-fi movie from the late 70s. So we'll get to this one first. Okay, Planet of the Vampires is its narrative actually gives rise to what would become Alien. It's notoriously one of the films that influenced Alien. And of course they're all saying, Alien people saying, no, we never saw that film. No, that wasn't, nothing, no. Because it is a very much a typical 30s sci-fi trope that Alien did and that this film did. I mean, this one's influenced by 30s sci-fi visuals. I mean, you can tell Mario Bava's trying to create these suits that feel very 30s pulp. And he's actually pretty much going out of his way to make it feel like 30s pulp. He knows exactly what he's doing. Alien took that kind of plot and did it in a kind of 70s way, made it very grimy and stuff. I actually prefer the pulpy version, because it feels more honest. I actually prefer Planet of the Vampires to Alien. You know, I actually prefer Aliens to Alien. I just think the Ridley Scott's film is kind of cold. I don't find it scary. I find it interesting, but I do not find it scary at all, because I don't like the characters. It's just like, Aliens, I like the characters, so it's much more involved. Alien, it's a respected masterpiece of the genre that I would much rather watch Jaws, made just before it. If I'm going to watch for a horror movie from that era, I'll watch Jaws. A mainstream horror movie from that era, I'd rather watch Jaws because I like the characters in Jaws and it's a much better story. You know, it's just Aliens never really did much for me. I like the series, I find it an interesting series, I find it fascinating on what the alien represents and stuff, but the film itself feels cool to me. But Planet of the Vampires is absurd, but it is really interestingly weird. It's about a spaceship that lands in this. There's two spaceships. They're trying to land on this alien world. One of them crashes, another one lands successfully, but they have to try and repair it. They land close enough to the other spaceship to try and go investigate what happened to that spaceship. They go over there and find that everyone's dead. And so they have to try and salvage what they can to try and repair their spaceship. And during this time, they the bodies of the dead come back to life. That's why they're calling it Planet of Vampires. It's just because they come back from the dead. That's it. There's no teeth. There's no nothing. They're not vampires. It's a blatant lie on the cover. It makes the film look much cheaper than actually it does. But what you get in this world is atmosphere. Mario Bava loves atmosphere. It's just like, shut up actors, I'm doing atmosphere. So the spaceship is very retro, but it looks gorgeous. The costumes look weird, but they look perfectly keeping with what an Italian would like to do in a sci-fi movie. That kind of over-designed feel. And it's one of those things like, give me a whole series of these films with this kind of world. It looks gorgeous, it looks weird, and it's low budget. And then Bava goes down to the planet, there's a lot of fog everywhere, and there's a lot of model work that looks gorgeous. Even though you know it's models, it looks gorgeous. It's just beautiful. Even when the guys come back from the dead and they're coming out with this plastic, which is actually the plastic that covered their bodies, it looks like cheese, but it also looks weirdly interesting. And the whole film's like that. Then eventually the commanders find, or the two kind of people who are obviously dubbed, they find this old alien spaceship, which they go into and they get locked in and have to find a way out, which feels very alienish. You can tell this was not the main plot point of this film, but you can tell them there's some weird, interesting idea. But you can also I'm also willing to accept that maybe alien people did not see this film, because it was an obscure Italian film. But they're very similar, because both of them come from 30s pulp. You know. But the fog is very Ridley Scott. The fog, but it's not. Ridley Scott couldn't do this in his wildest dreams, what Mario Bava does in this film. This is so much more impressive than Alien. And it's made for far less money. And even though it's tacky and cheap looking, it looks beautiful. It's just beautiful. See, that's why you hire Mario Bava. Even if his film was not great plot-wise, he can shoot really well. Even if the actors aren't that great, you're so interested in what you're watching that it doesn't really matter that the characters are kind of threadbare. It doesn't matter, I mean, you don't really care about any of the characters. But they're interesting enough that you're interested in what happens to them. You don't need any more than that. Because the world is so cool to watch. And just the atmosphere is so good. And it is a fairly short film. It moves like a decent clip. But because Mario Bava is involved, it feels moody and slow. And you're really involved in just the atmosphere of it all. I mean, you can make this film in about half an hour. It can have a half an hour runtime quite easily. But because Mario Bava is involved, hour and a half, great. You're happy to watch it. You're happy to see it. It does have this idea that these aliens have lost their physical bodies and are possessing these other creatures to just live. It's like, doesn't matter, really. It's just like, they're consuming us the way we would consume an animal. We're just animals to them, that's it. That's all it is. Yeah, we're a bit smarter than an animal, but we're not any different to them. So at that level as well, which is interesting. And it has a twist in, of course, where it turns out they escape from the planet, but it turns out everyone's possessed by that point, and they're going to find a planet which turns a bit modern Earth, and they're going to invade. So it turns out that human being-looking creatures aren't human beings, but they're going to crash land on Earth, and we're all going to die of this weird alien infection, which is good fun. It's really weird, but it fits in with that whole aesthetic of weird 60s sci-fi movies that are based in 30s sci-fi tales. It is a perfect example of that aesthetic. It's just great. This should be 4K instantly. This deserves a 4K just for the colour palette of Bava. I mean, every Bava film should be in 4K. He's one of those directors who needs 4K. And it is just wonderful. The film is just wonderful. It is pulpy. I mean, the script... You get a feel in the script, someone wrote a basic outline and said, Mario Bava, just film this. And if you have to give the actors a bit of dialogue, but you don't need to give them that much. You don't have to pay attention to them. Just let them be models for you. And that's kind of what he does. I mean, I cannot remember one performance from this film. Like, at all. But it doesn't matter. Because it's the visuals you remember. And just the style of it all. And it's just wonderful and beautiful. And Highly recommend. I'm not going to say any more about it. Just go see it. It's great. And it's better than Alien. Now we go to Green Slime, which is the inferior of the two films. By a long shot. But still fun. Now, this is the director Kinji Fukasaku. Made some of my favourite 70s gangster movies in Japan. He made some amazing films. He can bounce back with Battle Royale in the 90s. He's done some stunning work. He did a lot of the Japanese sequences in Tora Tora Tora, which is the best part of the film. The Japanese stuff in Tora 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 is the best part. He's a really good director, you know. But he's not good at sci-fi pulp. This is not his thing. He likes realism. That's what he's good at. Yeah, you know. This film needed someone who could embrace the absurdity and embrace the fact there's massive plot holes, and he's just not that director. But he does a professional job of it, but you can tell he's not interested. Another interesting thing about this film is written by William Finger, who's also known as Bill Finger, who was one of the creators of Batman. Before he was tossed out with Bob Kane, and there's been a whole legal dispute with other families and stuff, and now he's got some credit as one of the creators of Batman. He's the one who kind of designed a lot of the Batman stuff, and he was kind of denied a credit for a long time. So that's the other thing. So basically, he was writing pulp screenplays at the time to make a living because he wasn't getting that Batman money that Bob Kane was getting. So we got Green Slime. And with Richard Jacko as a supporting part. The best part of the film, by a mile, he's got the worst part, but he plays it so well that he's the best part of the film because he's playing the kind of cowardly, over-intellectual second in command who the hero keeps on telling him he's wrong. He always want him proven wrong. He's always going to be a loser. His girlfriend's in love with the hero. His fiancée actually in love with the hero, so he's going to lose that. You know he's going to die in the film. So he should be the complete loser of the film. But because Richard Jacko's playing him, he's the best part of the film. His best acted scenes in the film is from him, even though he's playing stuff that makes no sense, because none of these characters make any sense. The script's terrible. You know, the script's just awful. I mean, it's like, no one involved in the script gave a damn about the script. It was a paycheck. And the lead character is so terrible. He's one of the worst lead characters I've seen in the film. He's so authoritarian. He's such a my way of the highway character, and he's played so stiffly that he's horrible. I mean, you want to see him die throughout the entire film, and he never does. You know he's a lead character. They're not going to kill him off. But he behaves terribly, and most of the time that people react against him is because he's so obnoxious. It was like, if he actually ever said anything with some sort of decency to him, they probably followed his orders. But usually they go against him because he's such a dick throughout the film. He's terrible. So that's the kind of worst part of the film, is this lead character. He is genuinely awful. But the idea of the film is, there's a comet they have to blow up that's dangerous. They go and blow it up, but they bring upon this green slime. They don't notice it at the time, but it hits someone's suit. So it's on the suit. But as you go through the comet, it's a very kind of pulpy sci-fi 50s feel to it, which is a lot of fun. Plus you've got all these because it's a Japanese co-production, you've got all these Japanese model works from Toho that look really cheap. And it can work, those things work better in Japanese films with Japanese actors. When you've got American actors in it, it looks weird. This whole film is weird. Genuinely weird. Because it doesn't have the eccentricities of a Japanese film. It's just them following an American script that is a very basic. So you get this idea of this creature that is in the slime, and it grows when its radiation hits it. So when they try and decontaminate any suits, rather than just burning them, the radiation goes and makes these things grow. So they're on a space station and they're growing and they're wider and bigger and they're attacking. And if you shoot laser guns at them, it doesn't help until it does suddenly halfway through the film. They don't like flames that much, and it's just a hodgepodge of stuff. But the idea of these creatures growing from almost nothing to something big quite quickly is really interesting. They do not have the budget for the creatures. they just look cheap. But what they do have is lots and lots and lots of dialogue scenes with the lead character being a total dick. That's what they do have. You know, they don't have anything else, but they have that. That's what they do have. But the film is a lot of fun despite that lead character. I mean, it's like, you can see a talented director trying his best to make these absurd creatures look feel at least a bit intimidating by quick cutting and using a lot of mood and moving with the actors a lot and trying all these things to stick to the actors and make what they're doing at least look physically as if it's something interesting, even though the script's going against them and some of the actors are going against them. You can tell the director's trying, and it's a talented director, and there's some nice little shots here or there, but he has complete nonsense to work with, which is wonderful, because the film is wonderful. I really enjoyed Green Slime, because it's utterly ridiculous. I mean, the idea is good, though. I mean, you could do a good film with this. This is a film you could remake, and how just have this thing that comes from this slime and grows really quickly, and it could be really terrifying. But they don't have the budget for this idea. The writers don't care with this idea, and the director wants to be anywhere but here, so they shoot this very kind of retro Japanese style exteriors with these kind of interiors that are trying to be very European but don't work. And these American actors who do not work with that thing. It's such a weird hodgepodge that I adore it. It's just so weird. And it does have moments of this could be cool. But it's something that's like Doctor Who in the 70s would make a lot of with. When stuff like Ark in Space and things, they would take this kind of idea and do something really cool with it, despite the special effects. This film doesn't know how to do that. This film doesn't understand it. You take this idea and find interesting ways in script and have some interesting characters, and that'll get you through the special effects. Not this one is just like, nope, we're not doing that. Boring characters. They shoot a lot of this creature, even though they've been told you cannot shoot the creatures. They don't care. It's just weird. You know, but on the plus side, it's much more entertaining than Alien Resurrection. You know, it is. You'd much rather watch this than Alien Resurrection. It's just as stupid, but it's much more fun. So this is a fun film, though. I definitely recommend you try and watch it if you can. It's Saturday afternoon. It's a totally Saturday afternoon film. It's not something to watch when you're trying to take anything seriously. It's kind of on par with something like King Kong Escapes or something, that Japanese film with the big King Kong. That kind of thing where it's just really silly, but it's just so enjoyable. Just, no matter how dumb it gets, it's still so enjoyable. So I hope you enjoyed this video of these two trashy throwback sci-fi movies. They are really, really good fun. Green Slime pretty much has a reputation of one of the worst films of the genre, which is undeserved. But it is bad, but it's undeserved because the director is trying with a terrible script and a terrible lead actor and some terrible special effects. But I've seen so much worse. I mean, to be boring is much worse than this. This is fun. You know. So, hope you enjoyed this. I'll be back soon with one final video for this week. Right, bye for now.